Hello and welcome back to the Beat LA podcast. My name is Matt Ferrucci. I'm a writer-director in Los Angeles via San Francisco, where my heart is always. And I am joined, as always, from Italia, my partner in crime, my Patrizio, my Cavaliere, Don Paolo Rullo from Italy. Che cosa fai, Paul?
Consigliere. That's all I know from the Godfather movies. I'm good, Matt.
Yes.
How are you, my friend? I've missed you. I've been traveling, but I missed you. What's going on over there in the United States of Los Angeles?
Los Angeles is fine. Nothing's changing over here in California. To all our listeners in San Francisco and LA, they're like, Paul, everything's fine here. We want to know about you. Let's not bury the lead here. Cue the Succession music. Paul is in Italia on a vacation of sorts. He's on assignment, as they say. Mallorca. Now you're in Italy. You're going to go to Milan. Tell us, what's the vibe in Europe, baby?
They're talking a lot about the San Francisco Giants, man. That's what's happening here. No, I'm here on a two-year wedding anniversary with my wife, Kristen. We're having a lovely time doing kind of a second honeymoon-ish thing. And it's beautiful. The weather in Italy is a little shitty because we're kind of at the elbow season, they say, which is basically between like the tourist season and the non-tourist season. Anyway, but we're having a great time. But we wanted to do the pod every week during football season. And after the Niners, that's something that changed in LA. Matt, you can talk about that. The Niners were supposed to be it's shoulder season, Kristen, not elbow season. But you were there when the Niners suddenly couldn't win in Los Angeles anymore. I thought it was Levi's South. What happened at SoFi?
We're going to get to that, Paul. The mojo was wrong. The juju, the brew was off. There were some ingredients that weren't working. I think it's easy to blame you for the loss. Again, not me. Not this season. We're not blaming me. We're blaming you. But before we get to all of that, let's pay some bills real quick. You can watch this podcast on YouTube. It's great on YouTube. You go to YouTube, you can see what I'm wearing. You can see what Paul's wearing. Paul right now looks like he's wearing some expensive couture Gucci sort of James Spader collection from Less Than Zero. Nick, cut to the clip.
I just want you to meet some people. Okay? They're very cool. You'll like them. These are very important people, Julian. Cool.
So you can watch Paul and I on YouTube. Follow, subscribe. You can listen to us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow, subscribe, or you can do it on Instagram and TikTok. Follow and subscribe because it keeps the lights on, and all of those follows help our podcast grow. Paul, quickly, anything happen this weekend I should know of?
I thought we discovered that. I'm in Italy. That's what's happening. What's happening with your weekend, Matt?
I went to the USC game.
Oh.
I went to, I was at the LA Coliseum.
Yeah, look at you being an alma mater guy.
Yeah, I went there. I hadn't been to a USC game in years. It was weird being back on campus, Paul, because all of those memories started flooding back of all the debaucherous things that I did while I was at school.
Does that count, Matt, as one of for our drinking game when Matt talks about his partying past?
Absolutely.
Cut to the clip, Nick.
I can't feel my face. I mean, I can touch it, but I can't feel it inside.
But it was fun, man. You know, the LA Coliseum was actually beautiful. I'm actually surprised. I would actually venture to say it's got more character and it's better than SoFi. They've renovated the stadium. They got some boxes. They got the big screens. It's very cool. USC beat Wisconsin. I'll tell you one thing, Paul. When I was on campus, I was saying to myself, did the girls get more beautiful since I've been there? And I realized very quickly I've turned into Matthew McConaughey from Dazed and Confused.
That's what I love about these high school girls, man. I get older, they stay the same age. Yes, they do.
You're looking great, though, Matt. You're looking very... I feel like you got a collared shirt on.
Skin's tight.
Glow. Did you get a facial?
No, it's just the Filipino vampire blood, Paul. It's the fusion, baby. It's the fusion. Yeah, man. There's, life's good here in LA. You're not missing anything. We can't wait to have you back.
Time to get home. Although this podcast is sponsored by Moretti, because that's the beer I'm drinking during the pod. I tend not to drink during the pod, Matt, but it is 11:30 at night here in Santa Margarita, Liguri.
I do have some big news, Paul.
Bring it on. I'm nervous.
It's not big news, but I booked a movie.
I knew this, Matt.
Yeah.
Even when I'm gone, I'm always there because I'm your number one fan. A movie I feel like the podcast made happen.
That's remains to be seen, but I think the podcast helped me get a role in a film. I can't talk about it right now, but all I can say is...
You just talked about it.
You know, what do they call that? What do they call that when I bring something up but I can't talk about
No,
it?
it's like Fight Club.
The first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
Yeah, the podcast may have put me over the top in a film. Hopefully, I can discuss it sooner, Paul. But I did call you right away when I did get it, and I said, "Hey, Paul, I think this podcast got me a gig in a film where I play a podcaster, and I'm very excited about it."
Sounds like typecasting. It's
It
that
is, baby.
smoky, smooth voice of yours, man.
Oh man, it was Johnny Fever. I was
Yeah.
dropping Venus
I
flytraps.
bet you're an occasional smoker. Did you like method it up when you before the audition? You're like, hey, you had like a pack of cigarettes and a bottle of
No,
whiskey?
I quit smoking, Paul, and I think that actually helped me get the job.
Interesting. Anyway, I'm really proud of you, Matt. This is great.
Thanks, man.
I haven't gotten a gig out of the podcast. The podcast is mostly a loss leader at this point, but hey, what the hell? I'm having a great time.
I love it. No, Paul, your pot of gold is around the corner. Okay.
It is. I can't afford any of the Laura Piana I'm seeing. Everywhere I turn, there's a Laura Piana, which was the Kendall Roy clothes of choice, the $500 baseball hat and the $2,000 hoodie.
Look at you. You're 600 years old and you've pissed off your fucking boyfriend, the president.
Get them to support the podcast.
Okay.
Laura Piana.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
It's all going on the company card.
Hey, Paul, have we done enough foreplay?
Never.
We never enough foreplay.
Yeah.
I don't know. We've done enough foreplay.
This is going to be a bite-sized pod. Remember we talked about this. We have no guest today. No guest.
Okay, let's get to it. We're recording this on Monday. Old school. Monday, September 30th. Old school. It's just me and Paul.
It's so good! Once it hits your lips, it's so good!
A quick drive-through pod to get you from A to B. That drive from the house to work, from the treadmill to the shower. We are going to get into the 49ers win. We're going to do a little best things we saw. But first, we got to do some breaking news. Farhan, let's start with the Giants. We haven't started with the Giants in 4 or 5 pods because the Giants have been a sinking Titanic ship. But the best news all day today, folks, Farhan Zaidi out. Buster Posey in. Your initial thoughts. Go. I texted you this. You were eating in Italy, and I texted you this.
I was not surprised that Farhan was gone. I've been texting you madly over the last month. There were so many problems, and on the margins, it was just about a lot of bad decisions. Billy Beane came out this week and went on KNBR, and he talked about defending Farhan, and everything he said was like Farhan's a great number 2. He's the guy that does all the numbers and gives you all the information you need, but he was eaten alive by the other guys that are much more alpha, much more baseball guys. He never made a good deal. If you look at on the margin, every decision he made from like, oh, we have the best starting rotation in baseball, we're not going to trade anybody. He didn't trade Blake Snell at the break. He didn't trade Rodon at the break. He got no prospects. A bunch of first-round draft picks that didn't work. I mean, anybody else over 6 years would have been fired. So the fact that he lasted this long is a miracle. The fact that he got fired was not a surprise. The amazing thing is that Buster Posey took that job. And
Yeah.
his legacy, I mean, I give him a lot. He's got some fucking balls on him, man. He's got Orinda balls on him. He lives in Orinda, and that's what matadors have. The matadors is Spanish for balls because he doesn't give a shit because this could end very badly for him. But I think it's beautiful and exciting.
What's the comp here, the film comp? Like the first thing that popped into my head was Fredo on the boat in Godfather 1, cut to the clip.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners.
Or that's Godfather 2. But it's a coup d'etat. It's someone kind of sneaking in and taking something. Does a film pop to mind?
It doesn't, although I like a little Mo Green getting shot in the eye.
Yeah.
And Godfather 2. I was thinking about a comp in baseball. Has there ever been a Hall of Fame player for his own team who became general manager or president of baseball ops? And I didn't Google it. Maybe there has been. It is not a normal career trajectory.
Would it be the Derek Jeter thing that kind of crashed and burned right away? Was he kind of that
But he didn't
person?
he didn't go back to the Yankees. He went to the Marlins. There is no precedence for this. Look, and I love it. Buster's so competitive. He's a smart guy. He's going to have a bunch of people around him. He's got 4 kids. There's a whole reason. But I'm fascinated about what's going to happen. And I think the fans they could be awful, and they're still going to love this whole thing.
Well, Paul, it's like, I've told you I've run into Farhan a few times in the tunnel.
Yeah.
And like, this is not inside information. You're not getting anything deep here from Beat LA. But I've run into Farhan a few times. And every time I've sort of bumped into him, he's had his backpack on, a slice of pizza. He's got his water bottle. He's got too many things. And you feel like you're running into a computer coder, and he's almost kind of has an apologetic vibe to him.
Right.
Very charismatic. He gave great interviews. But that Andrew Baggerly article from 2 weeks ago, where there's smoke, there was fire, and Baggerly, great reporting, man. There, like, give him the baseball version of the Pulitzer, because he had the inside info and he was on this, and that article was
And
spot
Matt,
on.
you and I talked about this, and we're like John Shea, and there were people that were like, there was like this weird war among the reporters in San Francisco. They thought that he hadn't handled it right, or that he hadn't told the right. And I'm like, he clearly had it 100% right. They were jealous that he actually got the scoop.
Yeah, well, I just think this. I mean, Paul, it's like the Farhan regime to me quickly. His analytics, his wonkiness never really meshed with the organization. There was the Kapler hire. He leaned on using relievers as openers. There's that really famous story where he gathered like the season ticket holders on his sort of intro town hall meeting. And he said to everyone, like, I'm going to use relievers as openers, and the analytics say that's going to work. Does anyone have a problem with this? And like the entire room raised their hands. But also there was the constant churn of the roster, like a fantasy squad. The minor league system never got better. Now, he didn't sign Bryce. He didn't sign Shohei, Judge. There was the Correa debacle. I don't know if any of those guys were coming anyway. But I think, to your point, the lack of sort of the alpha mentality, I'm sorry, it's the business we're in. I think that was a big, big thing with him. And the player development didn't get any better since he arrived.
No. And by the way, so they talk about with Moneyball that basically when you work with analytics, at the end of the day, what you do is you make a team better with it and within like a threshold. They were literally other than the 1 year, they were a 500 team, right? And that's exactly what they were always going to be. At the end of the day, I mean, look, you can't. How do you find a star? How do you have to develop them, or you have to sign them? I'm amazed how much rope he was given. I'm glad it's over. I just think it's going to be really fun having Buster Posey be the president of baseball ops and see where this goes. Also, by the way, they literally announced. Everyone's like, "Oh, well,
Yeah.
Mel." It's very rare that a new guy comes in and doesn't want a new manager. But in the announcement today, Buster said, "I look forward. Bob, Melvin, and I are going to work together." I mean, it's very clear that Melvin's their guy, and that Posey likes Melvin, both former catchers, both guys that love the Giants, understand the history of the Giants, the culture of the Giants. And by the way, don't forget, there's no Oakland A's anymore. They have a runway here, too, where they can spend a lot of money. And I think it's going to be an exciting period. We're all thrilled that Farhan's gone, but the fact that Posey came in is crazy.
Yeah, like, to your point about that is by the time this airs, but it will already have happened. But the press conference tomorrow, Melvin's going to be there at that press conference to announce Buster Posey. And if he was on his way out, he would not be there. Also, you bring up a good point about the Oakland A's being gone. I mean, that sort of front office, it feels like it can be poached. I think we can sort of grab a lot of guys from the Oakland A's organization. Another thing I want to say is it looks like the GM, because people forget that Farhan was the head of baseball operations, and he had a GM, Pete Petulia, I think his name was.
Yeah.
He's probably out. This is who I want them to bring in. Why not? I think it's great. Bring in Kim Ng. I think that would be a great hire. Formerly of the Marlins, she brought the Marlins back, and then she left when Jeter left. I think she'd be a beautiful hire.
By the way, Scott Harris, who left, who's a GM that nobody talked much of, is now in Detroit. Detroit made the playoffs this year, right? They had this incredible run there. They went 31-11 to make the playoffs. I have a thought, and I may be wrong, but they talk about how Buster is going to be making the decisions, but he's not going to do the heavy lifting that a normal, because he's got these 4 kids. He doesn't necessarily want to travel with the team. He lives in Orinda, which is beautiful. He wants to play some golf. I don't know, So my prediction, Sabian is coming back as a special assistant, and they're going to bring back some of those guys that Buster feels comfortable with. Anyway,
I think that's a great call.
Kim Ng is outside the organization. I don't think that's necessarily how they're going to go, but I could be wrong.
To your point, I just thought of this, is like, I think it's going to be very much the dynamic of John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, because John Lynch kind of is the face, and he's kind of like the alpha dog, but everyone knows inside that organization that Kyle kind of calls all the shots when it comes to roster construction and whatnot. And I think Buster might have that sort of John Lynch vibe, and whoever he brings in will sort of fill that Kyle Shanahan role.
Well, don't forget Mark Hallberg, who's their first base coach currently, was, Buster's teammate at Florida State, and they're very close. And I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with Hallberg. I think he may bring him into scouting or into the front office.
Paul, I want to get to a couple of other things on the Giants here because we got to get to the Niners. If we kind of stick to our drive-through thing, we want to do a drive-through here. But here's my question to you. Obviously, when it comes to a fan, you are a fan wonk of the Giants. Does this really give us a better chance to re-sign Snell and free agents this upcoming season, having Buster there? Does it really give us a better chance to sign guys?
Yes, Snell's gone. I don't think Buster likes Snell. I think that Farhan got fired in part because of the Snell signing. I think that when he went over the luxury tax to get these guys at the last minute and kind of did his analytic thing of like, oh, we're getting a bargain. Well, a bargain's not a bargain if a bargain doesn't play the first 3 months of the season. I think Snell's gone. I think Snell's not good in the clubhouse. I do think they're going to get a better chance because I think they've got Logan Webb is a pitcher who loves the organization, homegrown guy, and Chapman now is a proselytizer, and Posey. I think they're going to get more guys.
Let me ask you this question, just kind of rapid fire here. Robbie Ray, does he come back?
Yes, because he can't opt out because he got hurt in a shitty season.
Yastrzemski, does he come back? Do we want him back?
Yes and yes.
You think he does come back? Okay.
So the last thing, Matt, and then I want to ask you a question because you're asking me a question. So if you look at the Giants had a surprisingly high, their average OPS as a team was actually surprisingly high. Almost everybody on the team had over a 700 OPS, which means they had more above average players than most teams. Go compare them like to the Cardinals, who they played this last weekend, who had most guys hitting the 600 OPS. The Giants, it was about execution, and it was about they got tight because they all felt they were playing for their jobs. They played fast and loose that last road series before Snell said, I'm not pitching because I want to. I think there's good momentum for next season. I think good things are coming. I really believe that. I haven't felt that in years.
Hey, man, who's drinking the Kool-Aid now? And also, I know a lot of listeners right now, Paul went into the wonky OPS range. Cut to a clip of Jonah Hill talking about some analytics.
3 ball players whose average OBP is
364.
Wait a minute, that doesn't look right. Doesn't come out right.
That's right, Artie. Billy, you got to carry the one.
Paul, did you have a question for
Cut
me?
to Philip Seymour Hoffman just being pissed off about it.
You're killing this team.
Art, I can do this all day long.
So, Matt, you tell me. You were kind of a Farhan guy, I feel like. How are you feeling about this?
I feel like you're getting a little racialist when you tell me that I was a Farhan guy, just because of the brownness that we both shared. Listen, as you know, like everything, I root for the uniform. I drink the Kool-Aid. I wanted it to work, but you slowly pulled me into the dark side, which was actually the bright side. And by mid-season, I was out on Farhan. I really was.
Okay.
So I think there's a little bit of old school that has to happen. It's not all numbers. And I know this is kind of going against the money ball, but I think there's an instinctual thing that has to happen from guys that played the game.
I agree with that. The guys that played the game, at the end of the day, when you look at the fact that they didn't perform under pressure this year, that was my point, is that in OPS or all these things can happen when you're down by 10 or up by 10 or it doesn't matter. What matters, you know me, my big thing is there's no game-winning RBI stat anymore, which is bullshit.
Yeah.
Everything it's what Billie Jean King, pressure is a privilege. That's what sports is about. That's what life's about, is stepping up and performing when it matters.
I love it when you end a segment on a self-help note. Folks, that was our Giants segment. We're going to be right back with a little Niners. Okay, we're back. I hope you enjoyed the music. That was for our buddy Chris Collins, who loves our elevator music from the Mad Men days. Hey, guys, 49ers, they got off the schneid yesterday, Sunday. They beat the Patriots 30-13. I think it was a kind of an impressive win just from the fact that we got off, like I said, we got back to winning. Just winning. We did it in impressive fashion. Watching the game, I felt like we should have crushed them. It was a little closer than the score had. But I thought, Brock Purdy, he's very polarizing. But man, the last 2 games between what he did against the Rams and this game, he's really upped his game, his athleticism. I was texting people saying, it's Lamar Purdy. He's scrambling for first downs. He's making plays. He is pushing the ball downfield. We are throwing more than we are running. We have more deep shots than any other team in the NFL. Yesterday, Paul, he was throwing bombs. He was pushing the ball. I think he's playing well. I mean, he's playing, like, if you look at the numbers, he's making plays. It's like he's kind of having an MVP season. He's not the problem. I think it's Kyle and the coaching. The defense is the biggest issue, and the defense yesterday was great. There was a Brandon Ayuk sighting, which was lovely. But all in all, I'm not impressed. We have issues, Paul. We have major issues, but we got the win. What were some of your impressions?
Well, so Ben, I want to ask you. So, where do you think this is all going? And then I'll tell you what I think. Can I tell you? Let me talk about baseball. I want to hear more about you talking football.
Where do I think this is going? I think like years past, and I'm talking like before last season, I think we're kind of moving back into 2021, 2020 mode where we're going to be a little bit mediocre. The injuries, we don't have the depth we used to have. Nick Sorensen is an issue. Our defense has been figured out. We have a lot of holes on defense. We can't stop the run. We're not getting a lot of pressure off the end. Linebacker's an issue out of Fred Warner. So I think we're going to be mediocre. We're going to try to figure things out. I think we can get on a run once everyone gets healthy. The offense starts clicking. Ayuk gets in shape. But I do feel like there's a 10-7, 11-6. We're not going to curb stomp our way through the season, and we're going to get to the playoffs. We're not going to have home field advantage, and it's going to be one of those things. Or we're going to be on the road, NFC Championship. Can we do it? I think it's going to be a little bit of the same. It's going to be a little bit of us on tilt. All those fans expecting us to be what we were last year. That is not this team. So it's going to be a gut shot, dick wrenching insertion type of weird prostate exam all season for us.
Oh.
Yeah.
Moon River. Whew. Thank you, Doc. You ever serve time?
Breathe easy.
Breathe easy.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Where are you at?
I'm trying to think of the movie clip where a guy gets hit in the nuts and everybody cringes.
Yeah.
After that, I'm not even thinking about football anymore, Matt. So cut to the clip,
Yeah.
Nick.
My balls.
Look, I think Purdy's looking athletic, man. He's running a little bit. He's going deep. That throw to Kittle was great. You see the thing where he was like, Kittle was like, we don't have enough room. That's supposed to be like a 30-yard pass. We only have 12 yards. And Purdy's like, we'll make it work, right? Like I got no issues with Purdy at the moment. Jordan Mason is a revelation. He caught some passes yesterday. They were nullified.
Look great.
One of the touchdown was nullified by a penalty, but everyone's
Ticky-tack.
Can he pick up what McCaffrey was doing, or is he just a runner? Looks like he's actually there incorporating in the passing game. I'm still livid. McCaffrey and Olivia Culpo just bought George Clooney's house in Hollywood.
$14 million.
And that's never a good sign, man. She's getting into his head. He's turning Hollywood. What took him so long? Why did it take him 4 weeks into the season to go and get the Aaron White goat's blood into his Achilles in Germany?
You had a theory that he went to Germany not for the injection, but for something else.
Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
Well, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're over there for an injection, you might as well go to Oktoberfest.
Very good. We need one more. One more. Big, strong man. Yeah.
That whole thing was weird. Brandon Ayuk throwing the tantrum about the red pants and the black pants. Like, that's not cool, right? And all this guaranteed money in football. That used to be the good thing about football. You didn't have to guarantee the money, unlike baseball. And Juwan Dennings, wouldn't you rather just get rid of Ayuk right now? So anyway, I think that there's a lot of stuff going on there that they got to figure out. And I think some of it's a culture thing. Some of it's there seems to be unrest. Who's going to fix it? Who's the veteran in the locker room? Clearly, Fred Warner's the guy on defense. I'm not sure. And who's the guy on offense? Is it Kittle? Who's going to get this thing fixed?
I think it's just a
probably
scheme
their offense
thing.
is better than their defense at the
Offense is
moment.
great.
I agree.
1,000%.
But I feel like that they've lost some faith in Kyle. He's lost. I mean, the Ayuk thing. What's your take on the Ayuk thing? Because do you see the video where he literally he's like a little kid kicking his pants off?
Well, I would say that the behind the scenes on the Patreon of this podcast, before we started recording, I threw a little bit of an Ayuk tantrum.
You did.
I
And he
did.
got me in line.
I did.
And I thought that he would get in line. I thought that Kyle was like, fuck you, man. Get this shit together. And Ayuk got 2 passes yesterday. He's on my fantasy team.
Listen, Ayuk, there's something going on. I've said this before. For all the body language doctors out there that watch games, there's something off with his body language. He doesn't get too high. He doesn't get too low. When he makes a great play, he gives the ball to the referee. When he messes up, he just walks back to the huddle. There's something about that with him. I'm not going to speculate and be that person, but I'm just saying it just seems like something's wrong. Like if you want to go to Brandon and say, are you okay? Not from a game standpoint. I'm saying from just a personal standpoint, he does give off that vibe. That being said, Jawan Jennings, this guy made a catch yesterday. He didn't even look. He just put his hand up and the ball stuck. He's hot right now. He's hot. He's on fire.
He's all man.
He's great. Yeah, but like I said, every game, there's no guarantees with the Niners anymore. There's no guarantees. Next week, we're playing the Arizona Cardinals, Paul. I don't know what the spread is. The Cardinals are in a bit of a tailspin. They were my sleeper team this year, and they got curb stomped by the Washington Commanders yesterday,
Jaden
42-14.
looks like he's the best guy out of that draft.
I mean, Jaden Daniels, I know I said on the pod that I didn't believe in him, but boy, oh boy, he looks special.
Again, don't forget about the Niners brain drain. Who's the GM in Washington who came from the Niners? I mean, the Niners have lost a lot of guys, a lot of the their brain trust over the last few years, and the Commanders, that looks like instant fucking decent.
Yeah, they look good, man. The Niners, they're at home. We're playing at home against the Cardinals. The line open, we're a 7.5 point favorite. Okay. Over under is 50, which says they expect a lot of points in this game. Paul, Kyler Murray's coming in town with Marvin Harrison. Cliff Kingsbury's gone. I was just about to say him. What's up with the Cardinals game? How do you see this game?
Well, it's interesting about the 50 over under. I mean, the Patriots have no offense, no offensive line, right? And that was a 43-point, game. So I guess they think that the Niners defense and what they did, the 6 sacks and, the injury to Elliott and that stuff, that they think that the Niners are, their defense is still a question. So, look, I think they're going to win this game. They're at home. Murray looked bad last week. I think that, if Murray and Harrison and there's another guy whose name I'm forgetting, they don't score a bunch of runs, a bunch of points, they're not going to win. The Cardinals don't have a good defense either. So I think the Niners are going to win this game. They have a really tough stretch coming up, but they're going to win this game.
Yeah. Do you want to give a point total?
Well, I'm going to go the over-under, Matt. I'm going to go 31-20.
31-20. Okay. Paul, I'm with you. I'm going to predict the Niners to win. I think we kind of capitalize on what we did last week offensively. I think we build offensively and the offense starts to click more. But I still think the defense is going to give up points, man. Harrison, James Conner, Trey McBride. They got weapons there.
Yeah, they do have weapons.
They got weapons. So I think it's going to be a close one. I think it's going to go over. I think the score is going to be 27. I don't know. I'm going to go with a weird number, 27-26. It's going to be a nut cruncher. But I'm going with the Niners also.
So, Matt, I'm going to ask you a question. So I feel like that my distance has, you didn't react at all to me not going neg.
It's a weird thing. You being away, Paul, and I'm just sort of grasping right now at this. I've gotten a little bit more logical. I think I've gotten a little bit more focused, laser focused on what's real. I'm not trying to play games anymore. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I've quit smoking. And it's given me an energy jolt of clarity. And I'm done fucking around.
I think it's because you're a movie star again. You've got this new movie.
Yeah, it's true.
You realize the podcast is not your only way out. You're like, fuck it. Whatever Paul's doing, I don't give a shit.
Dude, the podcast is my way out. It's like the podcast is like the Bill Walsh coaching tree. Everything I get is going to be coming off of the pod.
Hey, also, when I get back to America, the neg starts. But I'm in Italy, man. How can you be neg over here?
That's beautiful.
Negatory on the price of that machine, Red Rider. What song is that, Matt? One Piece at a Time by Johnny Cash. R.I.P. Chris Christopherson, by the way. What a life that guy had.
Yeah, I know. Chris Christopherson. Cut to the clip from A Star Is Born.
Passion rising inside me. How high can I go?
And on that note, folks, we're going to be right back with the best things we saw. All right, Paul, we're back. Beat LA podcast. We're trying to get this thing under 40 minutes, Paul. Are we doing okay?
You're running like an Italian train, Matt. Running a little late, but we're going to get there, baby. This is not a Swiss train. It's an Italian train.
There we go. Let's go. This podcast is brought to you by Pet Pro Supply Co. For all your pet needs, go to Pet Pro Supply Co. for dogs, cats, squirrels, possums, alligators. If you got the alligator if you're in Florida and you got the alligator in your bathroom, because I know that a lot of people in the South like to keep alligators in the tub, go to Pet Pro Supply Co. They offer everything you need, and they're a great sponsor of the show. Paul, before we get to best things, do you have any pet peeves?
No pet peeves. I'm so blessed. I'm running around Europe with my beautiful wife, and I'm having my 2-year wedding anniversary tomorrow. So no pet peeves, man.
Hey, Paul, did you get my souvenir yet? Did you get me something yet, or do you have to remind Kristen? Because put it on Kristen's list. She'll remember.
Don't you worry, Matt. We got you something.
Okay. Paul, best things we saw, this is for Ben, last podcast, my mom watched and listened to the podcast, and she got off the podcast and she called me. And the first thing she said to me was, oh my God, Paul went to college with Lyle Menendez. That's incredible. She wanted more details. That's all. She was like, what was he like? What did Paul do? And I'm like, Mom, I know as much as you heard on the podcast, but my mom, after, which I'm going to talk about, watching Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story on Netflix, I watched the whole season.
Oh God.
All she wanted to talk about was that, Paul.
Tell Lori
your
to call me. I miss her, and I'll happily talk to her about it. So tell me about it, Matt. How was it?
Paul, I pressed play and I was laughing because all I could do was think of you. And from the first frame of the Milli Vanilli song that started to play as they were rode in their limousine to the memorial of their parents, I was in. I'll say this, Paul. It is all at once superficial, outlandish, tone deaf, clunky, silly, over the top, and 5 episodes too long. All that being said, once I started, I could not stop watching. And for all the reasons I said not to watch, those are also the reasons I liked it. Really great performances. It oozes with 80s references. If you know the story and you used to read Dominic Dunn writing about it in Vanity Fair, it's salacious. It's probably half fictional because of what Ryan Murphy does, the liberties he takes. But Paul, I could not recommend it to you more. It encapsulates a guilty pleasure. And Paul, as much shit as you've talked, which was valid about this show, once you start, you're going to come to me and go, God damn it, I fucking watched the whole fucking thing. That doesn't mean you liked it, but it's going to take you there.
The only shit I talked was, why didn't I fucking write it? And look, Lyle Menendez, did they talk about his tennis career at Princeton?
They do. This is why you're going to like it. There's a lot of tennis, and his toupee hairpiece is a very integral part of this show.
Yeah, if we had the over/under on the hairpiece references, thank God they finally got that right. He and Agassi, their hairpieces always came off when they played. I also was not asked to act in it. I think I could have been an extra, maybe a little old.
100%, Paul. I mean, it's sort of the Ivy League references, and this is not talking about shit on you at all. You just grew up in a world, and you attended school, so you were around a lot of these types of people. And so I think once you watch it, I would love for you to just kind of give me some insight, because you're right. All I could hear as I was watching it was you say, when you were at Princeton, he returned, your buddy going, "Oh, he definitely fucking killed his parents," because they definitely had this entitled vibe to them.
We talk a lot about, like, finishing stuff and like competitive nature. Like I'm like, if I had the wherewithal to kill my parents, I think I would have been a better tennis player. Because then I would just, like, I got the killer instinct. Like, literally, I was in an Uber once with a guy from Romania, and he was very angry that Halep, remember Halep? She couldn't win the big tournament, and he's like, Djokovic, he's like a Serbian assassin. He'll kill his own mother to win a tournament, right? So at the end of the day, you got to have that killer instinct, whether it's your parents or tennis.
You need a little bit of it. I will say, Paul, and
I love our mothers too much to ever be tennis champions.
Yeah, exactly. We won't get into our fathers. That's another podcast. Paul, though, I will ask this. There seemed to be with the Menendez brothers, they came from money. Obviously, their dad was rich. But it seemed like Lyle had to prove that he was rich. He was one of those rich kids who needed to tell you he was rich and had this chip on his shoulder. Does that ring a bell?
So you're saying he killed his parents really because he didn't fit in at Princeton? Is that your theory?
I don't know. I just think he had a humongous level of insecurity, and that he just couldn't feel like he fit into the world that he was born into.
That's possible. Or he was just a sociopath. But yes,
he was a sociopath.
That is possible. I told you the reason that we all knew he killed his parents is because he cheated on his Princeton take-home psychology exam, which any brain-dead person could get through. It was literally it was called something for poets or whatever. Literally, you couldn't fail it. He cheated on the one thing because he couldn't help himself from cheating and murdering.
Well, Paul, I got to say that was your in-depth analysis on Menendez has been really great for all of our listeners and my mother, and she appreciates you digging in here and providing more context.
Again, Laurie, call me. I can give you more details. I got even more.
Can you maybe watch a little bit before our next pod?
Absolutely. I can't wait.
Because it's in the zeitgeist right now. I think it's going to play for a couple more weeks. Paul, I have one more thing I want to just recommend quickly. And this one blew me away, Paul. You'll actually be shocked as well. I reluctantly, because there was nothing to watch, clicked play on The Penguin with Colin Farrell on HBO. You know me, I'm not a comic book guy, but I will tell you, this show blew me away. It's a comic book show for people who don't like comic books. It's a street level crime drama. It's very much Sopranos in a comic book world. Colin Farrell's compelling, and you just root for him. He plays this underdog that you hope gets a win. Christine Milioti's in it, playing a role you would never expect her to play. It could be one of the strangest, sharpest thrillers shows you'll see this year. Like I said, I can't believe I'm saying this, but watch The Penguin, folks. Watch that first episode. If you're not into comic books, you'll watch it and go, holy shit. That was great.
Colin Farrell has had kind of an interesting career. At one point, I thought he couldn't act and he couldn't get in a hit movie, but I like the Inishman guy, and I think he's turning into one of these guys. The older he gets, the better actor he becomes.
I'd say this: he might be one of the best actors out there right now in the entire game. He's that good. And I will just say finally, Paul, I know I hate to do this to you for the fourth week in a row, but the finale of Industry was last night, and it was freaking exceptional. Saltburn meets Uncut Gems vibes. It was an absolutely stunning season of television, and I wouldn't be surprised if it sweeps the Emmys next year. Paul.
Can I just watch this season? Like,
yeah, sure.
Go back?
You know, it's an unbelievable season ending, and my jaw was on the floor. It was really on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, it's
but I'm not going to push it anymore.
I was just in the English countryside doing Saltburny shit. I like that kind of stuff.
I'm not going to push it anymore, Paul. That's the final thing you'll hear from me on that. Paulie, BLA fans want to know, what kind of shout outs do you have? What are you bringing back the BLA fans from Europe? Let's wrap this up here.
I think I'm going to be a new man. I'm dipping myself in the Mediterranean every morning to be like Don Draper at the end of the Mad Men, where I'm just rebaptizing myself every day. Who knows what's going to come? But when I get back, it's all Niners. We're going to every week hanging out in person. It's going to be a fucking love fest.
Just chopping it up.
And the Niners are going to start playing better once you and I are in the same city, Matt. I really believe. Once the podcast started, we went all the way to the Super Bowl, and we've been apart these last couple of weeks, and they've been choppy, and now it's going to get better when I get back.
Paul, what you're saying is you in Italy getting into the water, you're having a, sort of a Coca-Cola, this is it, this Coke is it moment?
I'm also giving my own presence in the world far too much meaning. Nobody gives a shit, but I like to believe that.
I will say finally, once again, Paul, the outfit, the sort of crew neck, sort of like European drug dealer, Beverly Hills 80s outfit you got on is great. It's a good look. It's a really good look.
We're going to do a remake of Bad Influence, Matt, when I get back to LA.
I love it. Well, folks, there's the Beat LA podcast live from Italy.
Hold on.
Paul,
I just want to cut real quick to a clip I sent you from Italian television of Trading Places in Italian.
No, dico sul serio, non hai visto Borghese? Non c'è che ti perdi, te lo dico io.
What a great clip. It reminds me of Lost in Translation when he's watching his clips from Saturday Night Live in Japanese. That was outstanding.
You haven't seen Megalopolis yet? I figure you would have seen Megalopolis.
Oh my God.
By now.
And apparently it's the biggest piece of shit ever made. Such a bad movie that it's actually impressive. You got to go see it. A lot of stuff on Twitter.
We're going to have a date night, Matt. You and I are going to go see Megalopolis together.
A lot of people walking out of that movie. Makes me want to go see it. Folks, that's the BLA podcast. Thank you for listening. We're going to be back in a couple of weeks, and we're going to have an amazing guest in person. It's going to blow you away. Until next time, Paul, what can you say? Can you say BLA in Italian?
Go Azzurri. That's the blue. That's it. Yeah, go blue.
Go blue. Go blue.
No, that's something that sounds like the Dodgers. Go Buster. Go Buster Posey.
Go Buster. Go Buster. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.